All right. We are live on Twitch and hopefully YouTube. I hope we're on both because I set it up to go that way. So here we are with episode 3 of The Last of Us. A click in the dark is what we call this podcast. The Last of Us on HBO, of course. So we are here to discuss episode 3 of The Last of Us. And, okay, so what are your thoughts, just general thoughts about the episode starting out?
I was very underwhelmed by this episode, unfortunately.
I think you're one of the few.
Yeah, and I got reasons for it. I think my expectations were a little higher for what I wanted to happen, and I think that's where I got into a problem with this episode. So...
Yeah, and you've never played the game.
Yeah.
I always cover that. You've never played the game, so you didn't have, like, a knowledge of Bill and Frank that I would have had. So I think that makes it a little bit different for you.
Right.
So it's a little bit different having that knowledge of Bill and Frank, although the episode really is a big departure from the game ultimately. But I thought it was a very good episode. A lot of people are saying it's like a great episode of TV, and I would agree. It's a great episode of TV. It feels like a filler episode ultimately. A filler that fills in stuff from the game. I liked the episode a lot. I thought it was a terrific episode.
I don't mind when you have episodes like this where you get away from the main storyline and it ties in. I mean, it ties in, but yeah, I like that aspect of this episode.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
So
it does. And yeah, I mean, I thought it was good. I thought it was a nice fill-in episode to fill in some backstory that we didn't get in the game. And I think that's really what Neil Druckman was going for in this episode, is to fill in some backstory that he didn't get in the game. And obviously some departures from the game as well, which we'll discuss. We will be spoiling the episode, so if you haven't seen episodes 1, 2, or 3, technically you should watch those before you listen to this. But if you have, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can find us on Twitch at twitch.tv/Basement Movie Room, YouTube at youtube.com/Basement Movie Room, or you can find us on any of your favorite podcast apps, because this is essentially a podcast that we do on video on Twitch and YouTube now. So we'll get started with the recap of the episode. So we start out with Joel. He's by a river, and it says that they're 10 miles west of Boston. Joel's putting his hand in the river, the hand that he had broken essentially when he beat the guy up. Joel's pretty down in the dumps from the end of last episode where Tess died. He's rather depressed, to be honest. He's not happy. He doesn't like what's going on. Ellie's being her usual self. But he stacks some river rocks, and then they get on their way. Ellie's trying to talk to him on this little walking trip they're taking, but he's not really having it. He doesn't want to talk, and you know, she doesn't want him to blame her for Tess's death, and I don't think he really is, but I think he's just kind of closed off emotionally, basically. So
yeah, I think that'll do it.
Yeah, and of course,
somebody that's lost that much, you know.
Yeah, and of course, Ellie asks for a gun again. It's a recurring thing in the game and in the show, which I think is hilarious that they absolutely put that in the show. She constantly asks for guns. So yeah. So what'd you kind of think about this opening?
Oh, I really like the opening. You know, their relationship's starting to build a little bit, and you know, Ellie's starting to chip away at that, you know, that hard surface of Joel. So, although he's still, you know, not having,
yeah,
he doesn't want anything to do with her. He just wants to get through this mission and get on to what he needs to do. Right. But you're starting to see a little kinks in the armor here.
Yeah. He really has been pretty solidly against what he's doing so far, but now at this point with Tess dead, he's even more closed off to an extent in the opening of this episode. And he's really only doing this because Tess wanted him to. And
which is opening him up a little bit emotionally, I think.
Yeah.
Like when they stop in the gas station, you start to see
Cumberland.
He's starting to feel like he's kind of worried about her in certain situations where before he was like, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
I'm out of here.
Yeah. So yeah, the conversation is fun. Honestly, it's fun for Ellie. Joel's really not having it. He doesn't want to talk about it. We go into so you mentioned the gas station. We get into the gas station. It's a Cumberland gas station, which I think is a real gas station from what I understand. And Ellie gets in there and finds a Mortal Kombat 2 arcade machine, and yeah, which is awesome. I was a huge Mortal Kombat fan back in the day, especially in the arcade. More the first one than the second one, but when the second one came out, it was awesome too.
Oh yeah.
So I played that a lot.
Yeah, that first one was amazing.
Yeah. Oh, just so much of my money, like $10 every weekend, right into that machine every weekend, and MK2.
I miss the arcades.
Yeah. So they're in the gas station because Joel said that they store stuff on routes that they take to make sure that they have supplies, that people going through have supplies moving through. And they go in the gas station, and he's looking around, and Ellie realizes he doesn't actually remember where the supplies are. So he's looking around, and she's like, oh, I'm going to go over here. Is it okay? And he's like, yeah, it's fine. So she goes into a back room in the gas station and is looking around, and she finds this hatch to like a basement or something. And so, of course, being Ellie, she's not going to be scared of anything. She's going to open the hatch. And she goes down into the hatch and finds something that, is part of everyday life right now, but you probably wouldn't see much of in the apocalypse. She finds a box of tampons.
Yeah.
So for a girl, that's a pretty good find,
yeah.
honestly. So
take what you can get.
She's really excited about that. And as she finds those, she hears a sound, a zombie sound. And she turns around and looks, and there's a zombie pinned under some rocks. I guess this zombie's either been there for a long time, or maybe it was a guy that got infected, got trapped down there. I don't know. I'm assuming he was down there for a long time. So she finds the zombie. It's pinned, and she's all about it, man. She is excited to be near one of these guys that can't really hurt her. So she walks over to it, kind of investigates it, gets her knife out, and cuts its head open, and you see all the fungus inside of its head when she cuts it open.
Lots of curiosity.
Little blood,
yeah.
A little bit of blood. So these people are still alive. So it's not like they're not alive still. It's the fungus just controlling them.
And the shot of the eye looking at her.
Yeah.
And just the makeup that they used with the eye itself.
Yeah.
It looks. I mean, you still get a little bit of humanity, but it's just barely there.
Well, that's something I was reading up on and listening to people talk about, is that the fungus can go dormant, so these people's they're still there.
Yeah.
These people are being controlled.
Kill the people. Right.
They're still there. Mm-hmm. And I mean, maybe in that eye, you even see some recognition of please kill me type thing.
Yeah.
You see that kind of thing.
Take pity on me, kill me.
So Ellie's over there with her knife. She cuts the head open, and then she stabs him in the head and kills him. Well, assumingly kills him. We don't actually see her kill him. We don't see that shot, but that would kill a human, so it would essentially kill the zombie, even though the fungus probably lives a little bit longer in the human, but they can't control him anymore because they do use the living human.
Right.
And this one's kind of got the fungus blowing out of its head too, so maybe he was going,
starting to become a
going
clicker.
To a clicker,
yeah,
because that's the long-term zombies. So she does that, and then she gets back out, and her and Joel, he finds a little toolbox in his little hiding place. It's in the ground too, and he leaves the M16, the machine gun there, and she's like, why are you leaving that? He's like, well, there's not a lot of ammo for that out there, so it's better to leave it here. Maybe somebody else can use it. And
is that something, I think you talked about that in the game,
there's not
a lot of ammo, so
no
you gotta find other things to use
for sure. Yeah, you got to find other things to use, like bricks and bottles are a big thing in the game that you can throw and distract zombies and clickers to get around them. And but he leaves the gun there because it's just not a lot of ammo. Then it's definitely you run into a clicker in the game and you use a lot of ammo and you just don't have ammo.
You got nothing left after.
You got to do the best you can to avoid guys at that point until you get some bigger weapons later in the game. But I'm sure that'll come into the show at some point, the bigger weapons. So they leave and start walking again, and they begin talking about how this all started. Because Ellie's, 14. She was born 6 years after this all started. And Joel explains that essentially it was in the food. So that theory is essentially confirmed. That's the first time they've confirmed the foodborne illness in the show, really. Joel says it was in certain foods like pancake mix or cookies and things like that. So that's kind of like the first episode we saw him not able to eat pancakes, not able to eat a cake. She didn't eat the weird raisin cookies that they were trying to give her.
It's kind of weird because I guess all that happened in the course over a few days.
Yeah. I guess he says that it's like it was like this one shipment basically of food. This certain food was infected
from Indonesia. I
guess.
guess.
It was probably from Jakarta, that flour factory.
Yeah.
So I mean, it seems.
I wonder
like,
how much they supply to the world.
Yeah,
it must
I'm sure a lot. Yeah, sure a lot. But like he seems to indicate that it was just this one shipment, and maybe they rooted that out after the pandemic or whatever started.
Yeah.
So that's why we see them eating things like she was eating bread, although it wouldn't affect her really.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's things that aren't infected. So and there's not really large scale farming anymore. So. They're farming their own flour if they're going to have flour. They see a plane that's crashed as well, and Ellie's like, "Oh man, did you ever fly on a plane?" He's like, "Yeah, a few times."
She thinks it's so cool,
and she thinks it's so cool, but he's just like, "Eh,
got to fly
it's
in the
mostly
air.
inconvenient."
Yeah.
So that's kind of that scene. Did you have any thoughts on anything going on in that scene?
No, just just building the world a little bit here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's nice world building.
CG was a little goofy on the plane.
Yeah, it's more like,
but
it's off in the distance, so they can get away with a lot with that.
Mm-hmm.
So after that scene, they continue walking down the road, and Joel wants them to go off the path to go through somewhere else. And she goes, "Why?" And he goes, "Well, there's something up there you really shouldn't see." And of course, she's like, "I don't care. I want to see it."
She's so curious.
Yeah. So they walk down the road a little bit farther, and they run into a boneyard. Like it's a bunch of people, basically a mass grave essentially. But there's a baby's bones and like some other bone, lots of skulls, and
still fabric left over from what they were wearing.
Clearly, he didn't want her to see this because it's not a good thing for him to remember. Even he doesn't want to think about it probably. But essentially, he says that once the pandemic epidemic started, soldiers started gathering people up in towns to take them to quarantine zones, but the quarantine zones filled up. Mm-hmm. So essentially, the soldier would take these people, load them into trucks, get them off the trucks, and shoot them and kill them. Yeah. And Ellie's like, "Well, they didn't have the virus." Nope.
Less mouths to feed.
Normal
less people to.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunately a thing that. It's unfortunately a thing that happens in wars essentially. Yeah. But now at this point, this is not a war. This was something else entirely. But they just didn't have the resources essentially, so they just killed people, which is very sad because there is a baby there, and then we flash back and see these exact people being loaded onto a truck.
And that was a really cool transition from that boneyard because it focused in on the baby and the mother, and they still had like their fabric, clothes.
The same clothes,
And then it kind of zoomed in on the clothes, and then you got a nice transition to
the little baby
back when they were getting loaded up. Yeah.
So the soldiers are loading all these people up on a truck.
That was pretty neat.
It's about 10, 12 people that get on the truck. It's not a lot of people. It's from a very small little like town square area, and you're in front of a really nice house.
Town. Yeah.
And the truck starts leaving, and you flash into the house, and you see a man watching a camera. And of course, we all know this is Bill. If you play the game, you know this is Bill.
Yeah.
You don't know this is particularly Bill if you haven't played the game, but you're going to catch on pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Bill's hiding from the evacuation. He doesn't want to leave his house. He thinks he can, survive on his own. And as soon as the soldiers leave, he leaves out and looks around. And he's like, "All right." And he backs this little shitty S10 pickup up to a boat, hooks it up, and I'm like, hooking up a boat? What's he hooking up a boat for? Is he going to go in the water? But no, he's using the boat as a hauler, as a trailer, essentially, to haul extra stuff.
What was that line that he gave when he was watching all the troops load up?
He said, "That's right. Get the hell out of there, you jack-booted thugs," or something like that. Like something Nazi. He's calling them Nazis or fascists, essentially.
At that point, I was like, "Oh, yeah."
Yeah, because you were expecting a lot from Bill.
We got Ron Swanson in the apocalypse. This is
played by Nick Offerman, of course. Yeah. And bearded Nick Offerman, kind of long hair, looking great. So essentially what he's doing is he hooks this boat up to his car, and he drives out to a liquor store or wine store, I guess it is, and the Home Depot. You see him in the Home Depot, and he's in the Home Depot, and he's loading up all this stuff.
He's literally a kid in a candy
store. He's loving it. He's getting everything he wants.
He's got a smile on his face.
Everything he wants, and all of a sudden the power goes out. He goes, "Well, it was a lot quicker than expected."
That didn't take long.
So he loads all that stuff up, and he gets back, and you see that he's got like fencing and all kinds of stuff that he's going to essentially build his little compound out of it. There's only him. Nobody else is there. It's only him. We're right in front of his house, and we got it on the TV. So he's right in front of his house. He's got all these cameras, so he can see what's going on. So he loads all this stuff up, and he begins building his little area. He's going to electrify the fence. He's got all kinds of guns and things like that. But he's going to make his own little compound. You see him setting up traps out in the woods. There's these pipes in the ground, which get a payoff later. We don't know what that is, but there's these pipes in the ground. He's got this massive generator to power his area. Yeah. He goes to the natural gas company, and turns the natural gas back on to make sure he has hot water and things like that through his natural gas lines. So he's setting up a secured town for himself. And after it kind of shows that for a little bit, it flashes forward 4 years. But we can talk about the scene with Offerman and with Bill doing all this. So any thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, it just and this is where my expectations were high for the show.
Yeah.
And because, I was a fan of Parks and Rec, and he was one of my favorite characters in that. And I'm like, oh my God, we're getting that character in this world right now.
Yeah.
This is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
He's going to be amazing in this. He's going to be a complete badass. And it starts off like that. I mean, it ends like that too, but my expectations were through the roof at this point.
Yeah.
So
yeah. He's being the badass. He comes out in the gas mask. I forgot to mention that. He comes out, which is a big thing in the game because it's spores in the game. So he comes out in a gas mask. So it's kind of like a callback to the game just a little bit on that part. But yeah, so we flash to 4 years later. There's an alarm that's tripped, and it's one of his holes. He built like these holes covered with chicken wire so people would fall down in them if they stepped on them. So he goes out, and there's a guy played by Murray Bartlett. We're going to learn that's Frank Murray Bartlett from The White Lotus, most recently.
He was the best part of that show.
Yeah, we're going to learn that's Frank, and he meets Frank. I'm getting a phone call. Hold on. Hello? What do you need?
You can edit this out, right?
Don't worry about it. I'll clean it, but I told them to, and they were supposed to already. Just tell them not to worry about it. Bye. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah. There's a backstory there.
Yeah. Always. All right. So he goes out there, discovers this guy in the hole. He decides to let him out of the hole. I don't know. Murray Bartlett has a trusting face, I guess. So he lets him out of the hole, and he says, "My name's Frank, and I'm starving. I haven't eaten in 2 days." And he goes, "But I kind of think that sounds not so bad, actually."
Yeah.
So he lets him out. He tests him.
Love the line that he's testing him out a little bit. He's like, why should I let you go and tell all your hobo friends, that there's a free meal here, like it's an Arby's or something. Yeah. And he looks at him. He's like, an Arby's? It's a restaurant. There's no free meals.
No free meals. Yeah, that was great. Yeah, that was in the trailer.
That was a funny line. Yeah,
that was good.
Yeah.
So that's Frank. He lets Frank come in. He's gonna make Frank a meal. He lets him take a shower, and Frank's just like enamored with this shower. He's like, "Can I have 5 more minutes?" And he's like, "Yeah,
this is amazing.
That's fine. Yeah, you can have 5 more minutes."
4 years probably without a shower.
Yeah. So he gets a shower. He cooks him like this fancy meal. I mean, it's rabbit, and it's like green beans and some other stuff. And he's just like
russet potatoes.
And he has a wine. He has wine. I can't remember the name of the wine, but he's like, "You knew to pair this wine with rabbit. You knew." And he's like, yeah, I know that stuff. And then as Frank finishes eating, he notices a grand piano in the other room. He's another line I really liked. He's like, these things are worth a lot of money. And Bill goes, "Not anymore."
Not today. Not anymore.
Yeah. So Frank sits down at the piano and gets out this book and is looking at these. It's like, "This isn't you." And he's like, "Oh, this one's you." And it's a Linda Ronstadt book. So he starts kind of poorly playing Linda Ronstadt on the piano, and Bill's like, and so Bill sits down and starts playing, and then they kiss. So, obviously Bill's gay and Frank's gay, and they've kind of run into each other in the pandemic, and they've kind of found each other. And from there in the episode, it kind of is like a romance type story. It's kind of interesting because none of this is in the game. So there was subtext in the game that Bill and Frank were gay and were together. Frank has a different end in the game. He doesn't end how he ends in this, and it's not as good, to be honest, because Bill and Frank have a big fight, and Frank runs off and gets infected and kills himself essentially in the game. Okay. That's how it works in the game. Spoilers for the game if you haven't played a 10-year-old game like this guy. So
Xbox guy.
So we jump from there to 3 years later. There's also a sex scene as well, which so we're not gonna get into all that, but it's okay. But so 3 years later, they get into a fight because Frank's been communicating with somebody outside on the radio, and it turns out that it's Joel and Tess that he's been communicating through their radio. And so Joel and Tess are at lunch with them, come to lunch, because Frank says, no, we're going to have friends, we're going to have friends. Bill's not fond of this. He's never fond of Joel and Tess particularly. He has a gun sitting on the table because he doesn't trust Joel and Tess. And we get younger Joel, so we're about 7 years past the start. So Joel's only in his 40s at this point, in his early 40s, when he's 56 in the main storyline of the show. He's in his early 40s in this. And so they're eating, and Tess and Frank are the best of friends, girlfriends, and Joel and Bill are kind of like the guys who don't trust each other.
They're the same.
They respect each other, but they don't trust each other. Joel's like, and Bill's like, he's like, you point that gun at me again.
Bill's got his gun on the table, just ready.
Yeah. And Joel's like, maybe put that gun away or something like that. He says, So Bill kind of comes to an understanding with Joel that he's not going to hurt him, that he's not going to hurt him, but Joel does warn him that the fence they have, it's not going to hold back raiders forever, and that it's already going bad, and that he can get him better fencing, aluminum fencing,
coming
stuff
from
like
his
that.
construction background. It's a little building right there. Joel's character. And
he knows how to do what he needs to do.
It's going to rust out in a year and a half. And I got some aluminum I can get you.
Yeah, he's going to get him that stuff. So they're going to trade. They become trading partners essentially. So it's like an uneasy alliance for Bill and Joel, while Tess and Frank are oh yay, best friends, that kind of stuff. Is interesting. We get to see Tess again, of course, looking a lot better than she did in the in the newer timeline episodes.
Less of a puffy face.
Yeah, less of a puffy face for sure, and wearing not so dirty clothes. Their clothes are really clean in this episode, to be honest.
Bill must have let them take a shower.
Probably. You guys go clean up before we have lunch.
I can't deal with the smell.
So after Joel and Tess leave, Frank is taking Bill to this. I guess it actually jumps forward a little bit from there, but after they leave, we jump to a scene where Frank is taking Bill for a surprise. He's got his eyes closed, and they come upon a little strawberry field, and Bill's like, "Where did you get this?" And he's like, I traded one of your guns to Joel and Tess for the seeds. And he's like, wait a minute, which gun? He's like, don't worry, it was a small one. And so Bill kind of is excited about this, and they start eating strawberries and all that. And then we jump to a rainy night, and Frank wakes up hearing explosions and fire outside, and we get to see Bill's full setup going on, because there's raiders outside the fence. He's got all these pipes that he installed they're flamethrowers essentially. So it's very cool. Frank finds a gun in the desk and starts to run outside, and Bill's out in the middle of the street shooting at these guys, which is not a tactical position. I like to think that he just got interrupted running to somewhere and had to shoot some guys that he thought were going to get in. That's my view on it, because Bill's better than that in the game. He knows what he's doing. I think he's just. I think what he's done is he's seen some guys getting too close, so he's taking them out real quick and is going to run to cover later. Maybe not.
He's got a sniper rifle out in the middle of the street.
Yeah. So Frank gets out there, and Bill's like, "No, get back in the house. You shouldn't be out here." And he distracts Bill, and Bill gets shot, and like right in the side, right in the normal "we're going to survive" shot place. So Frank pulls Bill back in the house. The Raiders are taken out by the security system. It's all good. And Bill tells Frank to call Joel. Bill thinks he's going to die. So, and he says Joel will take care of you, basically. So we'll stop right there because we're going to do another time jump. So any thoughts about these scenes and all that?
Yeah, no, I like how they tied in, Tess and Joel with Bill. You got, figured out where that alliance, stemmed from, and then finally got a little bit of what I wanted out of Ron Swanson in this episode.
Badassery.
A little badassery. Although I wouldn't be out in the middle of the street shooting a sniper rifle.
Yeah.
In the wide open, but I liked it. I liked that sequence right there.
Yeah. We're not getting a lot of background on Frank, but it seems like he has some medical training in this scene, possibly, or he's just, flying by the seat of his pants.
Yeah,
here.
Alcohol.
He is doing some stuff that would be, something you would do in this situation when you don't have a doctor, clearly. So maybe he's learned it over the years from Bill, or maybe he does have some medical training or something like that beforehand.
Yeah,
so,
the whole... They really try to make it look like he died.
Yeah, they're making it look
scene.
like that.
Yeah.
They do make it look like that. But clearly, if you play the game, he's going to live longer, and you're expecting other things to happen, which don't ultimately happen. But so after that scene, we flash 10 years later. But something back on the previous scene in the strawberry is Bill says to Frank, "I'm sorry I'm getting older faster than you."
Oh, right.
So when we jump this 10 years... it's a surprise that Frank is in a wheelchair and Bill is pushing him around. They're way older. They're both gray beard, gray hair, and Frank's in a wheelchair. So Frank has clearly come down with an illness of some kind. It's probably cancer, we assume, but we're never really told that it's cancer. It's just that doctors probably couldn't cure it. Frank has a lot of paintings and stuff throughout the house he's done. He does a painting in the next scene, in fact.
And I like how they left that open, the illness.
Yeah, we don't really know what it is. It's for the viewer. Yeah, we don't really know what it is. You can decide what it is. Yeah. Probably cancer.
Yeah.
Or ALS or something like that. You never know.
He's looking rough, though.
He's looking rough.
The makeup that they used to make him look older is pretty great.
Old man makeup is fantastic. Mm-hmm. So Bill and Frank are together, and he puts Frank to bed, and they go to sleep. And the next morning, Bill wakes up and Frank's out of bed in the wheelchair, and he's like, "Oh, this took me all night to do this," And he's like, "What are you doing? Let me get you back in the bed." He's like, "No, I'm not getting back in the bed. This is my last day.
Yeah.
I want to spend it together. I want to do things we want to do, and you're going to do stuff I want to do. We're going to go to the boutique. We're going to do this and that, and we're going to get married, and you're going to wear the clothes I want you to wear." So Bill assents to that. He's going to make him a meal, and then he's going to take the medicine they have. I guess Bill's gathered up medicine for him. He's going to take the medicine they have, and he's going to essentially pour it in his wine glass. He's going to drink it, and he's just going to go to sleep and not wake up.
Yeah.
So they get to the meal scene after they do the marriage and everything. It's all very romantic and things like that they do. And it's all Frank here. Bill's not a romantic, obviously. But, you can tell they do love each other, at least. So they come out with the meal. Bill's made the exact same meal from their first day. The rabbit, the green beans, all that, with the exact same wine. They even show the wine, and he kind of smiles when he sees the wine.
He's got quite the stock of that wine.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, well, there's a wine place there that's not touched. So
I would be out of that.
You'd be out
in a year.
Maybe 6 months.
I'd be dead.
Yeah. So he brings the wine out for after dinner, where he's going to put the medicine in the wine, and he pours the medicine in the wine. They both drink the wine, and Frank figures out that Bill's put it in his wine as well, and that they're going to go out together. This was Bill's idea. They're going to go out together. Bill doesn't want to live without him, so they're going to go out together. then this is the biggest departure from the game. I mean, all this wouldn't have been a big departure other than Bill's age, maybe, if Bill hadn't taken himself out, basically. And they wouldn't have gotten a fight and Frank run off and kill himself, essentially. This is a big departure that Bill kills himself instead of Joel helping Joel at some point in the game. And then you meet him and they have a conversation.
So do you think a lot of people were thinking in this episode when Frank ran out of the house and Bill came after him when they were in that argument, did you think that was when he was going to run off?
Yeah, that was possibly when, but it was too early in the timeline ultimately. But so this is the departure. It could have stayed the same after this, but I think it makes for a better backstory. I think that Druckman actually wanted to tell in this. So it's a double suicide essentially. They both die together, and right after that scene, right after they go to bed, we jump back to Joel and Ellie, and they're coming to see Bill. Joel's putting in the gate code. They're friends enough that Joel can get in and out of his compound on his own. He gets in the gate code, and they go in the house, and Joel's looking for Bill. Everything's kind of looking run down. It's been a little while since they died. Everything's overgrown.
He notices
like
the flowers haven't been watered, and
so he's worried.
Joel knows right off the bat.
He's worried about his friend. Because they are friends. It's it's still an uneasy alliance because Joel's looking around. He tries to open the bedroom door. It won't open because they barricaded it, probably because they don't want anybody bothering their corpses, I guess. Yeah. So Ellie finds a note. Joel comes around, and I wrote in my notes here that the note is amazing. It's a great note. It's like Bill's just giving Joel hell in the note, but he's like, in the sad part of the note for Joel is that he says to take care of Tess, but Tess is dead, of course, and Bill wouldn't have known that. But I think we can do a little transference that it's more about Ellie now.
Yeah. Ellie read that note first.
Yeah, right? Ellie reads most of it, and then Joel takes it and reads the rest. Right. Yeah. So
he had to take a minute after reading, or he had to go outside.
He did. Yeah, he was pretty torn up about it because
that's really the first time we saw any emotion
since like the first episode. First episode. Yeah. So Joel, he's lost a friend, even though they were, frenemies.
Yeah.
Sort of,
respectful towards each
other. But they also find a key beside the note, and it's a key to the S10. Still running, still looking great. And we'll stop there. Did you have any thoughts about those scenes?
Yeah, no, I kind of like how they went out on their own accord. Yeah. They made it through this whole, shit show.
20 years.
And didn't get a scratch on them, but they, didn't get infected. They made it through a long life, and they went out on their own accord, how they wanted to.
Yeah.
In a sense. And I thought that was pretty neat.
Oh yeah. I
like how they played that out.
Yeah, no, it was real good. Real good. So Joel and Ellie use the house to their advantage. Bill would have wanted them to. They take showers. They change clothes. Ellie finds a shirt that is straight from the game, so she's wearing the same clothes she wore in the game. And Joel goes out to the garage with the S10. There's no battery in it. This is the whole thing. There's no battery in it, but he looks around and finds in the fridge there's lead. There's a battery casing, sulfuric acid, so he can make a battery. Yeah. And he's got it. There's a charger out there. So he comes back in the house. He's like, I'm charging the battery, and that's when they do the showers and stuff. And Ellie's kind of snooping around and finds that gun that Frank had in that desk drawer and sticks it in her backpack. Oh, yeah. Of course, she's got a gun now. What she's always wanted. You got to say that's going to come into play. That's Chekhov's gun. It's going to come into play at some point.
It's going to save Joel's life, I'm sure.
Yeah. So after the battery's charged, they decide to leave. They get in the truck, open the gate up, drive out, and they're driving. I like the comment. Like Ellie's first time she's ridden in a car. I guess she never rode in a Fedra vehicle at all, and she's super excited about it. And Joel's like, "Put your seatbelt on," But I like the comment.
Yeah, she's like, "What?"
She's like, "This is a cool thing." He's like, "Oh, I just thought it was a shitty S10."
Yeah. Yeah, that was good.
So they're leaving in the truck. Ellie has her gun. They took showers, and they're on the road. And I know where they're going because the preview from the next episode, which I did watch now that I think about it, they're going
Wyoming, right?
No, they're going to Wyoming, but they're going to make a stop in Pittsburgh.
where they're in Boston still.
They're 10 miles from Boston.
10 miles from Boston,
give or take. Yeah.
So they got a long way.
Yeah. So the next episode's going to be in Pittsburgh. Yeah. I can guarantee that.
So Wyoming's a long way from.
Yeah, it's a long way.
From Boston.
So hopefully they got plenty of gas to take with them, because that's going to be a hell of a lot of gas.
You're gonna need more than a battery.
It's an S10. It'll get about 20 miles a gallon probably. Yeah. It's an old one. So that's the end of the episode. They're in the car. They're cleaned up. They're on the road. And like I said, the next episode I'm pretty sure is going to be the Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh is a major mission in the game. You have to get through Pittsburgh. It's a lot of danger. So there's going to be excitement in the next episode, I think.
Looking forward to it.
You saw that vehicle in the preview? Did you see that the vehicle kind of skidded to a stop? That's a big thing in the game. So that's the end of the episode. We kind of already gave our thoughts, but do you have any more thoughts about the whole episode?
Yeah, no, I mean, this was not my favorite episode by any means, just because I had different expectations.
Yeah,
and
I understand.
You got some of it. I wanted something else, and then I got a tragic love story.
Yeah.
That in my opinion, it took way too long.
It probably could have been cut down.
And I would have liked to seen more of the back and forth with Joe and Bill. I would like to seen Tess, when they brought Tess in there, it was like, all right, we're going to get a little bit more of the backstory of all this, but it was quick. So I was pretty disappointed with the episode in general.
What we do
But it had a lot of good parts. Yeah. But it is, in my opinion, it's the weaker of the three. Yeah. By far.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what we do miss out on a little bit by doing it this way is some good conversation between Bill and Ellie, because Ellie's kind of acerbic in nature and Bill is kind of acerbic in nature, so they kind of play it off each other a lot, pretty good in the game. I don't remember exactly their conversations, but it was pretty good part in the game with them two kind of giving each other shit, basically.
Nice. So they weren't able to do that.
Weren't able to do that. Now I understand.
But I appreciate how they do deviate from. You can't go directly with the game, because what's the point? Just go play the game.
Yeah, it also gives Druckman a chance to expand on things.
Build on the world. I get that, but I wasn't that big a fan.
I think you're gonna honestly probably see Emmy nominations for Murray Bartlett and Nick Offerman for this episode. The acting's great.
The acting was superb. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, just not what I was wanting out of this episode, and I think that's what disappointed me. Yeah,
I understand.
And I don't know the games. Yeah. At all, there's 2 games, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but this one's none of the second games in this one.
I don't know the games and the backstories and all that. Just know a little bit. And,
you're getting it.
I'm getting it. But when I see, Nick Offerman in this role, I'm like, this is a perfect casting for an apocalypse.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, but I didn't get what I wanted. I'm sure a lot of people got what they wanted, but it didn't work for me.
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah. I thought it was good. But I understand. Some people are like that. Some people are like it's the best episode ever of TV. But it definitely was more filler. It didn't move the story along a lot, but it moved the story to where it needed to be at the end of the episode, and got to tell a story that was separate.
I'm liking how this show is not going to be so linear.
No,
it's gonna
pull off.
But it all comes back. Yeah, which it did well.
Oh
with, with Tess and Joel.
Right.
Being in the mix, and I mean, I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it.
Right, I understand. Yeah, I thought
this is the first 2 episodes I've gone back and watched a lot. I'll have it in the background cleaning, whatever. And I don't know if on rewatchability this will be one of the lesser ones.
Yeah.
Maybe because it's slower too.
It is. It's a slower episode. Yeah. It certainly takes a slower pace. That makes sense.
Yeah, I didn't. That's just me.
Yeah, I understand. All right. Well, that is it for episode 3 of The Last of Us. Yep. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you don't follow us, be sure to check us out on YouTube. I'm going to do this again. YouTube.com/@basementmovieroom or Twitch.tv/basementmovieroom. You can also find the podcast on any podcast app out there. We just changed over to a new podcasting hosting, so that won't cause any problems, I hope. But in any case,
it's exciting.
You find us. You can also now email us at Basement Movie Room Podcast with an S, with an S on the end, at gmail.com. So if you want to ask any questions or anything of us, you can email us there. Yep. Otherwise,
start putting that in the link.
Yeah, we should.
A link down here.
Yeah, we definitely should do that.
Or over here.
If I remember to do that somewhere.
That's what everybody,
give or take.
That's what everybody does now. Click the link here or here.
Yeah. So that's it. We'll see you next week for episode 4. Hopefully on Sunday. There's a little ice last night, so I didn't get to come over to record last night, but we're going to try to keep it every Sunday. Otherwise, we'll probably be doing a movie or two here after we get done with this one. So if you stay tuned, we'll start another stream shortly after this one. And we'll see you next time on Basement Movie Room.
Until next time.